Knockle would sleep against the steering wheel with a thin black pillow between him and the wheel. He was a roofer. He dreamed away his worries about how they were launching raids to take away his happy boxes. One by one, he took care of his fellow poets. Meanwhile, on stage, the contest proceeded with the contestants facing off mercifully with haikus. When the judge saw the contestants, he snuck out a bottle and felt like suicide, the same way most of the poets also felt like. No one knew what a proper haiku was, and they all kept talking, while the judge yelled out disqualifications. Alan Bibber would eat off plates only so he could wash them. Same with drinking from glasses. Alan ate and drank too much, but at least he got to engage his passion, washing dishes. For Alan, it was simply the way hot water and soap bubbles moved on surfaces. Alan would even go over to other people's houses and wash their dishes. When he retired from selling insurance and was given a melancholy gold watch, he regretted never having been a professional dishwasher. But Alan was resourceful and got himself into the kitchen staff of a chain restaurant. "Ah, dishes," thought Alan. And even better, he found, was washing the pots and pans. "Life begins at 65, thought Alan, deep in his very own cloud of steam. Once there was a coach of the sport called swimming. He began to love swimming due on seeing a very strange variety show on television when he was just a kid, and the show ended with a song about swimming, to which the chorus went, "Swimming, swimming, swim, swimming." Of course, when the coach thought back after he'd grown up, the chorus probably hadn't been that word at all, but a cluster of other words. But anyway, the coach, in his youth, had gone around singing, "Swimming, swimming, swim, swimming," until his mother signed him up for the swim team. He was an organized anarchist, with all his pamphlets stuck neatly in one bookshelf, all his revolutionary tomes stuck neatly in another bookshelf, the dishes done, the floor hoovered, his clothes put away, the bed made, his teeth brushed, him typing away at something that would either wind up a screed or a manifesto. Listen, you got lonely eyes that are just two yellow ones stuck with pins madly driving. What you can't see in the fog is bothersome in terms of horror, but what you can't see in the fog is okay in terms of lovely-like, lovely-like, lovely-like. Then you're smacked with a deadline while you crouch brown-coated in idle kiss of felt leather massia. But that's not what you're asking, is it? Listen, if you want to rob the local museum, do it at the end of the day when the guards are at their laziest. And now I don't mean to give good ideas to criminals such as yourself, but you poor dumb criminals never seem to have any really good ideas of your own, do you? So yes, 4 p.m. when, if you think you got museum fever by that time, boy oh boy do the guards ever got it. For example, how sandwiches aren't allowed, and yet you see a fat kid eating tomato and egg paste in front of, we must always resort to mentioning the only painting we know by heart, the Mona Lisa.
She would appear at the side of the brown busker, and he'd look up to her and shout, "Hey, am I okay out here?" And she'd shake her head and step back into the afternoon shadows.
Little Lardley Templeton, in his love of sweets and science, got his name changed in ridicule by us, his colleagues, from lawfully to Lardley, but he laughed that bit off, even so, yeah. Smart guy went on sabbatical from the college and used all his savings to set up an elaborate psychological study of why women were so fond of chocolate, going into their genetics and ancestral leanings, etc., thinking it had something to do with either a chemical mess-up between the chocolate and the women, or a collective racial memory direct from the Spanish Americas. Whatever the case, Lardley had to come back to work at the college because he'd lost all his savings and never gained the answer about chocolate and women. But he was okay because he'd gotten more sex than any other fat man in history. The only perfectly round lake in England was built by a wheelman whose bitter wishes over his wife's excessively hairy chin and throat drove him to the madness of digging an absolute perfect circle and then dumping water into it. The clerk was explaining to the other clerk how one corner of the store was insecure, but how complex it would be to pay a minimum wage security guard to guard that corner. And Angus sat there trying on shoes, thinking they should maybe just shuffle the shoe racks a bit. Scientist slash biologist slash zookeeper Leonard Littleknocker figured out that animals generally wanted to have a place to be indoors once in a while, just like humans. He advanced his idea, and the whole world got behind it. Everyone became enthused because the idea was also a kind of way to get along with nature and the planet, of course. Then, once the problem of there being actually people who didn't have homes was solved and laid to rest, then everywhere in the world, humans started building houses for animals to come and go from. So bears or giraffes, for example, they had houses to live in, starting around the year 2300. And so it was. Hawkins, he'd gone through all the training and so forth and become a fighter pilot. But flying over the latest war zone on his very first combat mission, he dropped a single bomb, saw the destruction, and simply lost interest in war. He turned his plane away from the sad afternoon sun and flew off before any of his fellow fighter pilots knew he was gone. Chamont liked it when they, the terrible they, found a new rat to chase. Chamont kept himself up late under the train bridge with naught but a lantern to light his mind. He gave out chestnuts for free so the bank guard wouldn't run him off. No one stopped, but they all read his happy sign. Manette had made it, except for where Chamont had to cross off the $3 and write free. Lord, it'll be quiet about the chestnuts. He stood there thinking, they, the terrible they, were, after all, running down even the Christmas carolers.